So when Liberation Day came, not the 1st of May, but the 2nd of April, that was not a complete surprise to us. Because Trump had signaled very clearly and over many years that he wanted to do tariffs. And he wanted to equalize America's trade deficit. He believes in tariffs since he was a young man. He had said during this campaign repeatedly that if he comes in, he's going to put tariffs on everybody. It's the most beautiful word in the vocabulary. And the first time he was president, 8-9 years ago, he had imposed some tariffs. So that he was going to do something was not a surprise. But even then, what happened in the Liberation Day was more drastic than expected. In fact, it was the biggest shock which the global trading system has ever faced. The stock markets plunged. I think even the bond markets moved in America. Interest rates went up, bond prices came down. And so for now, there's a 90-day postponement on what Trump called the reciprocal tariffs. And he's put in some exclusions for Chinese smartphones, laptops, chips. And so for the time being, there's a reprieve. But tariffs on all the countries, 10%, that's non-negotiable and that's in force and happened already. So, postponing 90 days sounds like you got 90 days of reprieve, but actually during these 90 days is not just the tariffs which have been postponed, because with this thing hanging over you, waiting, not sure whether it's going to come or not come, everything else goes into limbo. Because what happens after 90 days? We know that what the US administration wants is they want to eliminate the US trade deficit. They want to rebuild manufacturing in the US, bring the jobs back, and they want to do this not only across the board to balance with the whole world, but they want to do this country by country, with China, with Japan, with Canada, with Mexico, with Vietnam, not with Singapore. Why? Because Singapore has a surplus. America has a surplus with Singapore. That's all right. If America had a deficit with Singapore, we would be there high on the list too. It's the way they're thinking about their problems. So this is a fundamental belief, a very deep motivation. Trump believes it. His team believes it, many of them. And these are goals which are going to be very difficult to achieve. So we must expect him to continue to pursue this objective. And when he makes moves, and the moves have not delivered results, I think the conclusion will not be to leave off, but will be to continue to do more moves and to take further strong measures. So we can expect to see more further steps taken by the Americans over time, and that's going to have very major consequences for many countries, including Singapore. So we are here now, steps taken, steps yet to come, more uncertainties to come. We are not where we were before this new administration took office or before the 2nd of April. The world is in a new phase. One of the biggest problems in trade and arising from this tariff package is the damage to US-China relations. America has postponed the tariffs against other countries, but not postponed against China. The tariff war between America and China has already begun. First round, America put 20% on. China responded with selected products. Then America came back again. China went back and forth. Now, US levies on China 145%. And the Chinese You do this to me, I do this to you. The Chinese do to US imports, US sales to China, 125%. So it's reached the level where the number doesn't matter anymore. It can be 100, it can be 200, it can be 300. How much business is going to be done? Probably almost none, because it's impossible. And it doesn't stop with such tariff items. It goes beyond tariffs. So, for example, China has restricted rare earth exports. And what are rare earths? They are a raw material which you need to make all kinds of electronics equipment. And China is a major exporter. If you don't get it from China, it's very difficult to get from other places. So China says, you do this to me, well, I will respond. I will restrict rare earth exports. And you don't want me to sell you goods? Okay, I will not buy your goods is one thing, but I will also restrict imports of Hollywood films. Films are not goods, because films you just stream over, you can watch, it's services. But never mind, I will restrict that. I won't watch Disney, I will watch Ne Zha 2. So, effectively, the bilateral trade is going to get killed. And why? Because the businesses just can't do it. If the tariff is 5%, 10%, maybe even 15%, okay. I'm selling to you, let's cham siong. You take 5, I take 10, we squeeze our belts a little bit, my profit a bit less, your cost a bit higher. Okay, let's carry on and try to stay calm and carry on. But when it is 150, 200%, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or day after, then you can't stay calm and carry on. You must stay calm, and then you may have to decide to go into a different business or to go out of business. And that means entire businesses and trade flows are going to stop. And it won't end with trade. Because if I'm quarreling with you on such a serious matter, it's very difficult for me to cooperate with you on other equally serious things. So, for example, the Americans want China to cooperate with them on restricting fentanyl, because the materials to make fentanyl come from China, somehow they go to Mexico and other places, they become made into fentanyl there and smuggled into the US. And America wants China to stop making the precursor chemicals. But China says, well, why should I try very hard? So this is going to escalate, and there'll be far-reaching consequences for US-China relations. This is not a new problem, actually. It's not a problem which started with this president. It's a problem which has been growing since quite a number of years. The attitudes changed when Obama became president. Over time, they hardened. So it's Democrats as well as Republicans. We say that the Americans are divided, but on China, the Americans are united. Strong consensus that China is a facing challenge. And they have to take China very seriously, and actually they are trying very hard to stay ahead of China and to prevent China from overtaking them. At the same time, the Chinese say, I'm growing, I'm developing, I want to take my rightful place in the world. Who's going to stop me? So this is a fundamental contradiction. The Americans say, I want to make sure that you don't overtake me. The Chinese say, I have a right to develop. So we can talk about win-win, but when you cast it like that, there's a fundamental contradiction, and it's not going to be easily resolved. So the latest trade war has worsened it, and is going to be a serious problem for the two countries, and also for the world. So what do we do about it? Some people say, don't get excited, don't overblow the issue. We've weathered bigger storms before, we haven't failed, so we should take these events in our own stride. And it's true, we shouldn't get excited, we should take it in our own stride, but we do need to be concerned and to understand what is happening and what this means for us. Because this time, something important is different. We've gone through many crises before over the years. We've gone through global financial crisis, before that Asian financial crisis. We had SARS, most recently we have had COVID. And from every now and again, something happens in the world, we are carried along, and we have to batten down our hashes and see it through. And every time we have succeeded. So we have confidence. But one important thing which you must understand is that every time that happened, we had two big things going in our favor. One, within Singapore, we were doing the right thing. We could get united, we could get our act together, we could respond with the right policies, even painful ones, and we could get the system, get ourselves sorted out. But two, every time we got into trouble last time, Singapore was part of a working global economic system, trading system. And that trading system promoted free flow of trade, free flow of investments, encouraged MNCs to look for places to do business. We were efficient, we were doing well, we came out from trouble, we plugged back in, we could resume growing, resume developing, resume succeeding. So every time you run into trouble, you come out, you plug in, you grow again. Next time trouble, you come out, the system is still there. It's a global financial system, the WTO system. And that was what helped us. What was it about that system which helped us? It gave countries, big and small, a level playing field. So whether you're a big country or a small country, under the WTO system, the rules are the same. Your access is the same. What do I mean? Let's say between countries, we trade, right? Sometimes you have tariffs, sometimes you have other restrictions. You're allowed to do that. But you may not discriminate between your partners, big ones and small ones. So, let's say, take an example. If the EU raises tariffs on cars from Japan, you want to protect European cars, you raise tariffs on, let's say, Nissan or Toyota, then you must charge the same tariff on cars from every other country. Chinese cars, Korean cars, Indian cars, American cars, you have to treat them the same. If Singapore had cars to export, Singapore would also be charged the same tariff. On the other hand, if you give a concession to a country, for example, if Australia says, I will allow rice from India to be sold duty-free, then they have to do the same for rice from all other countries. Japanese rice, Chinese rice, Vietnamese rice, American rice. Everybody has to come in also duty-free. It has to be a level playing field. You can protect yourself, but you can't discriminate between your partners. And that is called MFN, most favored nation. It sounds, if you're MFN, that you got some special favor. Most favored, right? But actually, most favored just means equal favor, means you don't get more than anybody else, and you don't get less than anybody else. And it's a level playing field for countries big and small. But what it means is that for small countries who have very little bargaining power, because the rules are like that, so we enjoy the same market access which big countries enjoy. And we benefit from the bargaining power of bigger countries. And therefore, we can get access, and therefore we can get investments, and therefore we can get jobs. So MFN is critical to Singapore. What is different this time is that the US doesn't want MFN. They want to dismantle the system. They want to replace MFN with reciprocal tariffs, meaning not, I won't treat everybody equally. I want to treat each partner one-on-one. I deal with you, you deal with me. What you give me, I give you, at least in principle. When you bargain, of course, I would like you to give me a little bit more, and therefore exploit America's bargaining power. Because they are big, right? 1/4 of the world GDP, 1/7 of total goods trade in the world. Why treat everybody equally? Well, they don't have the cards, to borrow some famous words. Why not we treat this one-on-one, like arm wrestling? Let's see who's got more biceps, who's got a stronger arm, and we'll see who's stronger. We'll get more that way. So it's a fundamentally different kind of world which the US is looking for and pushing for. And the approach is not win-win, but win-lose. In other words, the US wants to do well for themselves. They really don't mind whether the other countries, do well for themselves or not. And President Trump recently is on record saying, if we can make a really fair deal and a good deal for the United States, not a good deal for the others, this is America first. It's now America first. So this has very major implications for Singapore, very major implications for the world. What does it mean for the world? Firstly, you're going to have different rules for different countries. Small countries will suffer because we have no bargaining power. But even big countries will not do well because there's going to be a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainties, a lot of differences in the rules, and far fewer opportunities to trade, to invest, to do business together. Secondly, the tariffs, whether they're equal or whether they're unequal, and in this case they will become unequal, will choke off trade, will raise costs, and will dampen growth. In 2000, at the beginning of the millennium, the US tariffs were on average about 1%. So basically, if you can sell to the US, your goods can enter the US almost duty-free, 1%. There are some exceptions, like trucks, they charge a lot. Other things like sugar, where they are restricted, they are sensitive, they got farmers to protect, or ethanol. But across the board, 1%. They were the anchor of the global trading system. Now, already, they are at about 10%. At a level which has not been there for 80 years. It's very high. It's higher than any other developed country. And if 90 days' time, the rest of the tariffs come in, reciprocal tariffs, and they go to 30, 40, sometimes nearly 50%, then the US tariffs will be even higher than they were before the war, during the Great Depression, when the US pushed the tariffs right up, and that worsened the depression for the US and for the world. Furthermore, this is not the end of the story, because tariffs on the bundle so far has not counted two products, pharma and semiconductors. And pharma and semiconductors may have been feeling happy for the short while, but America has made very clear that coming soon, akan datang. And that will potentially hit Singapore quite hard, because farmers and semiconductors are a significant part of our economy. So that's from the immediate impact of the American tariffs. But when other countries retaliate, then you must expect back and forth, tit for tat. It's happened with China, it will happen with other countries. Then there will be a downward spiral, and the impact will be even worse. Canada has already retaliated. The EU has also retaliated. quite carefully because they are a bit fearful. They've done Harley-Davidsons because that's one of the iconic American products, but they haven't put high tariffs on whiskey, bourbon. Why? Because the Americans say, you do bourbon, I'm going to hit French wine, German wine, champagne. So both sides have held off for now, they can drink to that. But that's a small item. As the quarrel goes on, it will go bigger and the impact will be worse. And the Chinese side has gone right to the end. And with other countries, you can head in that direction too. And that will do a lot of harm. Fourthly, when you have tariffs and we say, well, that's going to dampen growth and things are going to slow down and there'll be fewer upsides, it's not just dampening growth, it's going to be very disruptive. If dampened growth means volumes go down, right? Profits go down. Maybe bonuses go down. I tighten my belts, I still got my job. Most of us. And maybe over time, I can go and find another job. But if the supply chain is disrupted, if you get hit with 100% tariffs, companies in China are making Christmas trees for America for Christmas. 150% tariff, Christmas is not going to come. If you've got such a tariff on pharmaceuticals or semiconductors in Singapore, are we going to have Christmas or not? So what it means is that industries can be disrupted, business can be totally turned upside down, you may have the whole business model suddenly disappear, and not just not hiring more people, but you may find yourself all of a sudden with a lot of surplus workers wondering how to look after them. And that can very quickly lead to recession in the US itself, and impact elsewhere too. So this is going to be a burden on businesses, on consumers, on the global economy. Fifthly, with all these new tariffs, this is something which is going to last a very long time. It's not going to go away soon. Because once you put in a tariff, once you protect your market, it's very difficult to take it away. People get used to it. Some company may invest. You put in a tariff, you say, come and invest in America. So I invest in America. It's really not competitive. You want to build Christmas trees in the US, it's very expensive. Where to find workers? But after you have got the tariff and after the Christmas tree factory has come up, then you want to undo it. The factory says, I'm going to die, please help me. So you can't undo it anymore. It is there, it's a reality. And furthermore, if you undo it, then the party in opposition will say, but you see, the Chinese have their tariffs still on. Why am I disarming myself? You have to negotiate with them. Further long process. To go from where the Americans were before the war, when they had high tariffs, to where they were by 2000, when the tariffs were 1%, nearly zero, that was a nearly 80-year business process, gradually bringing things down. So now if the tariffs go up, they stay up for a while. If you want to bring them back down, I think that's going to be a long process. It's not going to disappear. So that's going to be a long problem. What's the impact on us? Immediately, the impact on us is growth. This year we were hoping for 1 to 3% growth. That's what we announced around budget time. But with all this uncertainty in the world, MTI has revised the forecast. They've just put out a new forecast today. They've put it down to 0 to 2%. Do you know for sure? No. Could it be zero? Possible. Can it be negative? Will we have a recession this year? If you look at the numbers, we don't think so, but it could happen. And it could happen because actually you really don't know. You're not looking at whether consumers are ordering, whether demand is good, whether your product is improving, whether everybody is prospering, and therefore I take an optimistic view. Let's invest first. I think if I'm fast, I'll get something. What you don't know is what new policies are going to come. What are other countries going to do? Then how will America retaliate? And you ask me to guess? It's impossible. So the uncertainty is very high, and that's a problem. A problem in the short term, as I explained earlier, in the medium to long term. So we must expect slower growth this year, a recession somewhere down the road, maybe not this year, but quite possibly at some point. And over the medium term, 5-10 years, that this is going to be a less friendly world that we are in. So the difference between this time and previous crises is previously you can come out into a world which is working and we fit in, we work again. This time we are okay, but the world is not going to be okay, and we have to do our best to make sure that we look after ourselves in this much less hospitable world. And that's going to be just on the economic side. On the geopolitical side, I don't want to go and talk a lot about it tonight, but you know about US-China, you know about the problems which are going to be worsened because of the trade. And so we must expect more US-China tensions, and therefore a less tranquil, a less stable region, and more demands on us to work very hard to be friends with both and to find our own way forward without getting into troubled waters. So I think for Singapore, it means some very serious implications. This time is different, and we have to understand that, even as we think, what can we do about it? So what can we do about it? I think there are two areas where you have to think about, one internationally and the other one domestically. Internationally, I think we have to continue to support free trade, multilateralism, the WTO, and to try to keep the system going and not collapse, even though the US is abandoning the rules. The US is the biggest economy. They come out, it's a significant impact on the rest of the world, but the rest of the world are still there, and if we can work together, I think we have a fair shot at keeping the system up. I give you an example of how this can be done. You will have heard of the TPP, right? The Trans-Pacific Partnership. You don't need to know the details, but basically 12 countries got together to negotiate a free trade agreement. Singapore had some part to get this process started right at the beginning. One of those countries was the US. In fact, President Obama was very active in pushing the negotiations and trying to get a deal on the TPP. And he succeeded. But the last step was to get the deal ratified in Congress. Then America is in. He couldn't do that. He left it to his successor. He hoped that it would be Hillary. Hillary said, no, I repudiate this, although she was also involved. And anyway, Hillary lost and Mr. Trump won. And Mr. Trump has said, if I come in, I'm going to kill it on day one. So when he was sworn in on the 20th of January 2017, on day one, he killed the TPP. But fortunately, the TPP didn't die, because there were still 11 members, other than the US. And Japan was still there, and Mr. Shinzo Abe was Prime Minister of Japan. And he exercised leadership, he rallied the other countries, he renegotiated the deal so as to exclude all the parts where we had accommodated American interests and saved the rest of the deal. And he got the other 11 countries together, and we all signed, and enough ratified. We now have a CPTPP. So America leaves, the game can still carry on. And in the same way, in the global trading system, America doesn't want to play by the rules anymore, but the other countries, if we can maintain the system as we trade with each other, I think that's important, and that will be very valuable to countries like Singapore. So we will work with other countries to try and make that happen. That's the first thing we can do. The second thing we can do is to promote trade arrangements with like-minded partners. For example, we are in the RC, we have the ASEAN group. We have an ASEAN free trade agreement. The EU is a major partner, and we can do business with the EU. ASEAN can have an FTA with the EU, negotiate with them, expand the ink blot of free trade, create more avenues for us to cooperate win-win with one another. And Singapore is pushing for that. In fact, we met, the ASEAN trade ministers met, and I think they will be working at this and working with other partners too. The CPTPP, that is valuable too. That can also grow, can also find partners. UK joined the CPTPP. They need to, they had left the EU, they had no alternative, they came in, but we welcome them. But the EU, looking around for partners, says, how about EU and CPTPP, we get together, one in the Asia Pacific, and including Canada and Mexico, and Peru and Chile, and the other one in Europe, and if we can get together, it's something valuable. So the TPP members are keen. The European Commission President von der Leyen, she's keen. So I hope that if we push that, we can get something. This is one of those situations where you want momentum. If you are sitting there doing nothing, something will happen to you. If you are standing up and pushing something, you may make more progress, you may make less progress, but you will make some progress, and you will be better off than where you are. And this is an area where we need to make progress, and Singapore will help to push. Thirdly, externally, we need to do more with our ASEAN partners. Within ASEAN. We have an FTA, as I said, but you can do a lot more, and I hope that with this additional impetus, we can do more of that. For example, Singapore and Malaysia, we're talking about the Johor-Singapore SEZ. In Johor Bahru, or in Johor, companies can go there, they can have favorable terms, and Singapore companies prosper. Malaysian business will benefit, Malaysia will benefit, and foreign companies can be there, can be in Singapore, and therefore they also can benefit. And in the process, Singapore and Malaysia, we work closer together. That's good. When that happened, there were reports in the Indonesian newspapers to say, well, Singapore and Malaysia are doing an SEZ. What's Singapore doing with Indonesia? And answer is, we are doing things with Indonesia, but I think there's a certain amount of competition because they see us as being able to add value. And I hope that with this pressure within ASEAN, we'll do more. So globally, with WTO, try and keep the system intact. Big partners between trading groups try and come together and form bigger blobs, and within ASEAN, try to make ASEAN stronger, more relevant. And Singapore, we are small, but our trade is not small. I think we have some contribution to make. Secondly, we have to respond to the new situation domestically. And I'd say in three ways. First, in terms of practical support. Secondly, in terms of psychological preparation. and thirdly, politically. In terms of practical support, we need to help households, we need to help businesses, and we need to keep the economy growing. To help households, I think you know we have a lot of things. On cost of living, certainly, is our first big item. Typically, households this year will be getting around $4,000 in various forms of assistance. We are helping workers who are displaced, for example, with the Job Seeker Support Scheme. We designed this expecting dislocation, expecting people to be displaced. And this is what we will need if, in fact, the tariffs dislocate supply chains and there are significant disruptions to our industries. Then the workers who are displaced will have the Job Seeker Support Scheme to give them support to tide over the period when they're out of a job, looking for a new job, or training for a new job. We will have support for reskilling. I talked about that earlier. And overall, I would say the budget package we have is enough for now. If the situation gets a lot worse, we will do more, and I can assure you we are able to do more. Secondly, we have to help the businesses. We've set up an economic resilience task force under DPM Gan Kim Yong in order to navigate the uncertainties and to help businesses transform themselves. So it's not just to deal with immediate problems, it is also to deal with a longer term, take this opportunity of the immediate challenge to get ourselves prepared to be more competitive in the long term. And NTUC is going to be part of this task force, looking at how best to support workers through this. So, secondly, I think we need to be psychologically prepared. We need to be prepared for a more troubled world. You must know that bad weather is coming, but at the same time, we can take comfort knowing that other countries are also facing the similar challenges, and Singapore is readier than most of them to deal with these challenges. Readier because we have the plans, we have the resolve, we have the experience, we have the resources, we have the unity. We are ready to do this, and we can do this together. One of the important things which we must do if we are going to go through this together is to look to fault lines and stresses and strains which will build up in our society. Because if you want to go in and you say, let's be united, it's not just wearing the same t-shirt. It is making sure we look after one another, taking care of one another, making sure that when fault lines come up, people who are having greater difficulties, people who may be left behind, people who are dislocated, they don't feel left out, they don't feel alone, they know that others care for them, Singapore cares for them, we will help you, you help yourself, we work at it together, we are in this together. I think that's a very important mindset which we must have during a crisis, going into a crisis, and which we are able to do. It is the problem which in America has led to the pressures and the grievances and dissatisfactions which have led to the government to pursue all these very drastic policies, because they have certain parts of America which have been left behind, industries all doing badly, they call it the Rust Belt. These are places where the industries have all done badly and the workers have no jobs, the populations are left out. The blue-collar workers in America, their jobs across the country have not done well, their incomes have not done well. Their lives have been blighted by drugs, by unemployment, by crime. Left behind, they voted for change, drastic change, and they want to break the system. They want a different world. And we must never allow our population, or some part of our population, to feel like that. We are going to have stresses and strains too, because There will be retrenchments if there is a recession elsewhere. There will be dislocation if the supply lines are interrupted. There is going to be dislocation also if technology comes and we're not prepared for it. If AI comes, if robotics come on a big scale and your jobs are taken away or transformed and you can't do the new jobs and you're out of a job, then it is no comfort to say that the GDP has gone up, but my life is not better. And so far, we have prevented that from happening in Singapore, and I think in this situation, we must do double to make sure it does not happen to Singapore. If you can do all that, look after the households, look after the physical needs, make sure we're psychologically prepared, then we can also address the political issue, which is to unite as one Singapore team, working closely with the government. And you need to have a good government, an effective government, a strong government, in order to take care of Singapore. And it has to be strong domestically in order to be strong internationally.